Tell me when. We're live? Now we're back. So let's see. How are we doing on time? Yeah, so we'll run it for another 25 and then we'll call it a day. So Rachel, we were just touching on some of these ideas, Growth Monday, talking about, our own personal growth. We're talking about your growth on LinkedIn, kind of brought you to this platform, and some of that, and a little bit more about your business. So, again, to kind of go back to it, what you do on LinkedIn is very unique, and in terms of like standing out, finding ways to stand out on LinkedIn, I feel like you've really developed something special. Now, whether you're a nurse or you're an individual that, may be in another space looking for a job, all of this is relevant. So how did you develop your style? How did you kind of come up with like the singing angle? Because I think like if we could get some of those core elements, this is something that could relate to a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, I built it out gradually. It was like I was building my brand when I was working for somebody else. And it was really that I just wanted to have influence. I think LinkedIn's platform, if you're thoughtful about it, it can be a place where you kind of create a space for yourself influence in your industry.
I have to call you out for a second. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you were developing your brand while you were working for somebody else. You're doing that on the clock. You were like writing out your resume. Like, let's dive into that a little bit, because I do think it's not a thing to feel shameful over. Some people may. I think it's actually really smart and important. So can you elaborate a little bit deeper on that?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't always well received by my employer. I mean, I was like, look, the bigger I get and then I'm associated with you, the more people know about you. So like,
love that.
That was my thought behind it, was like, one, I had this sense of, I work for you, but you don't own me. Like I just very matter of fact, I think people think, and I know it can be depending on what industry you're in, it can probably feel like that. And some industries are more restrictive for legal reasons why they can't say certain things on certain social media platforms. But I didn't have any of those restrictions in place. And so I really helped our organization differentiate itself because of the type of messaging. I became one of the faces of the organization, even though I wasn't in a senior position, initially, because I would do things like I'd go to a conference, an HR conference, a wellness conference. I would take all of the insights and notes I wrote down from the keynotes and from some of the primary workshops and breakouts I would go to, and I would blend them into a summary of the whole conference. And then I would tag all of the people in the post who had been speaking. I started doing this probably 5 or 6 years ago. And so then people started seeing the stuff that I was sharing, and it really helped me be a voice of the wellness industry, right? Or be a voice in HR. And I found that I was doing a service, right? I think what I learned very early on, without necessarily being told, was the importance of serving an audience. And you learn that as a speaker too, right? That you have one job. Your one job is to be in service to others. And what I found was that and sometimes there was pushback. Sometimes it was like, hey, people are a little confused. I had a blog I was writing that had nothing to do with insurance. It was about food and nutrition. It was called Rachel's Nourishing Kitchen. I don't keep it up anymore. But sometimes there was some pushback of like, people are confused whether you work for us or yourself. And I was like, well, that's on you to like be clear about the fact that I work for you.
I love this attitude. I love it. It's very empowering and probably very healing for a lot of people that are feeling similar. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of it is to ask yourself, how could I use the messages that I have, the experiences that I've had, the insights and wisdom that I have to help elevate my company, but doing it through my platform. So for instance, I had learned very quickly that like personal pages perform better than company pages. So I was like, I'm going to write the stuff on my personal page, like use my personal post, like don't have me reshare something on the company page. Right. And so I started to learn that, clients were reading the things that I was posting, and it was a source of additional communication that we could give to our clients to say, hey, check out Rachel's latest post on this. And it was a way to build without having to be direct of, we're trying to get your benefits and sell you insurance, which nobody wants anyone contacting them to say that. Not nobody, but most people don't want that to be the initial motivation for the outreach.
Right.
It was a way to get in the door, to have a conversation that was relevant to a lot of the people, like HR people that we were often trying to get in front of. And so I was able to be used as almost like a lead gen kind of tool and a marketing tool. And I think it was very unique. And I had a very understanding leader who gave me a lot of latitude. I was like, you gave me a long leash. And he was like, what leash? I did not. You were not on a leash. You very much do what you want.
Right.
But, I think over time, just the ability to be somewhat consistent. I wasn't posting every single day. I just was on there more than most people were, especially 5 or 6 years ago. Most people were not doing anything original on LinkedIn.
Right.
And so by the time I left the company, I had, I don't know, maybe 4,000 to 5,000 followers by the time I left. And then once I could do whatever I wanted and sing in videos or talk about things that had nothing to do with that workplace, where I was, I was able to grow much more quickly. People didn't think I was going to sneak a move in and try to sell them insurance,
yes.
But and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a livelihood. It's a great business. I still work with a lot of insurance, employee benefits companies, and it's a necessary service. But I kept trying to tell them, like, people want to share stuff and read stuff that's relevant to them in the moment, not about like a legislation update on LinkedIn. Like, they don't want to read that on LinkedIn.
Right. And I think that's a really important point. Also, to kind of like backtrack a little bit, you made mention of the fact that you had at the time 4,000 to 5,000 followers. People to really understand like how massive that actually is. A lot of people look at follower counts, and when they see somebody with, a couple of million, or they see someone with a couple of 100,000, I want everyone to just take a moment and consider, like, how much is 1,000 people, right? Like, if you put 1,000 people into a convention or an auditorium, that is a ton of eyeballs that you've got on yourself, right? So the fact that you have the opportunity to promote yourself or build your brand in front of that many people, and it's really not that hard, and it's a focused message that to some degree is reaching, if you're smart about the connections you had, it's reaching the exact people that are actively maybe not searching for it right now, but down the road they will be, or they want to do business with someone like you. Very smart. It's very smart to be on the platform. So when you have 4,000 or 5,000 of those people, the question that I always pose to people that are on the fence, should I be on LinkedIn? Should I not be on LinkedIn? How much would it cost you to get in front of that many people to, deliver your specific message? It's unheard of. So, and also something to consider is, like, the average LinkedIn user has 900 connections, and that is also factoring in the people that have multi-million, right? So when you really consider what the average person has, it's maybe a couple hundred. So for Rachel to have 4,000 or 5,000 at that time, that's insane. That's a lot of people.
Nice.
So, but yeah, I think that it did help you kind of like elevate your game. And then when you did step away, you were able to have something, you had something that you kind of built in. I think that's super smart. When did the singing kind of come into play? Because in terms of standing out, that's a heck of a way to do it. So
thanks. Yeah, I went through a professional speaking training in 2018 into 2019, and that was the first time where I was sort of challenged to integrate singing into the message, because the message was around, unmuting yourself and finding your voice, and how I found my voice gospel choir. And I was like, should I sing this part about when I sang? And they're like, is it a rhetorical question? Yeah, you should do that.
Do you believe everybody can find their voice?
I do. I don't think enough people have the right kind of guides alongside of them, or they're not necessarily who can guide them into the type of healing and introspection and perspective that I think if someone's like a blatant narcissist, they're probably going to always be speaking in somebody else's voice to like impress somebody. And I don't know if they have the self-awareness to necessarily be able to change.
Right.
I genuinely am a hopeful person who believes in transformation, even when it seems unlikely.
Yes.
But I think everyone can find their voice. I think a lot of people are not necessarily in safe. When I say safe, I mean psychologically safe enough spaces to be willing to even experiment. I'm loved by at least one other person, the man I live with and have been with for 15 years. So I'm like, even if I royally screw up, like, he's not going anywhere. So I think a lot of it is just there's a fear. I hear a lot of people have a fear around using their voice, whether it's to even write a post at all on LinkedIn, or even comment on something else, or to reach out for somebody about a job opportunity, or to ask for a promotion, or to ask to go to a conference, or to get training. A lot of people are ruled by, and I've told people around, about this in the sessions that I do. And they're really driven by fear. They're driven by a fear of rejection, a fear of looking stupid, a fear of being wrong, a fear of, they're just like, they're driven by fear. And so they let that silence them.
Which I can really relate to that because, I was a professional wrestler in my early 20s. So that was a lot of like the entertainment and the art and the showmanship. A lot of that I was able to project that through the wrestling. But then when that dream didn't work out and I had to go into forensic accounting, I had a lot of shame about being a forensic accountant because I felt like visually I didn't fit the bill. Like imagine like a guy that looks like me with long hair and a beard walking into, a hospital system, they had 12 different locations, walk into this hospital system, and this guy's going to be auditing our books. I felt the judgment, not necessarily like they were outward speaking it, but I could feel it. So when, we started doing some rebranding for the forensic accounting agency and I kind of stepped up into that role, I felt a lot of shame. I was like, I don't have 30 years of experience as an accountant. I don't necessarily have a ton of experience in marketing. I felt like those C-suite executives that have that higher level of knowledge, those are the people that deserve to be heard, not somebody that looks like me or sounds like me or has such a baseline level of knowledge. Why would anybody respect my opinion? And what you learn very quickly is that there is so few people that are owning this space. Going back to kind of what you were saying about when you started doing your own thing, it was your way of standing out. So you kind of almost need a confidence to say, okay, I'm going to go through with this, even though I'm not the most experienced person. So how did you kind of like get through that? Because I'm sure like anybody that's kind of like on the fence about doing this, they're looking at themselves saying, okay, well, like I don't have 30 years of experience. Can I have a voice?
Yeah. Well, I so connect to this a lot because, again, you talked about kind of offline. I was very shy growing up, like a lot of people are, right? Just not feeling the confidence to necessarily advocate for yourself, speak up for yourself. And so I was very shy, growing up. And then, I would say a couple of catalytic things happen, and it's up for us to pay attention. I think so many people go through life asleep. They're not paying attention to the stuff that's happening in their own life that's trying to move them towards something. And so because we're like not paying attention, we miss these things. And so for me, one of the things was like living abroad. I studied abroad in Spain in college, and I lived out of the country, which out of the US, which I'd never done before. I was terrified. But I got put in such an uncomfortable situation where I didn't even speak the language. And I just had to sit in a space of discomfort for an extended period of time. Did you do the throwing the tomatoes festival thing or no? No, we did not. But I know about that. That would have been cool. If you didn't die, yeah, I guess so. Didn't get impaled by a bull. Yeah, that's okay. Good. That's good. I was like kind of on the fence about mentioning that one because I know it's like a controversial thing, but mad respect. Yeah, that did not happen. So fortunately, but like. It was those little moments. It's like, I feel like everybody in their life, all of us, I feel like we have these little doors that open halfway and we can choose whether we want to like keep pushing it to like see what's on the other side, or we can just look at that little crack and be like, too risky. I'm going to shut it. And I think for me, Spain was one of those doors that I'm like, I'm going to push this open. I'm so scared. Or when I got back from Spain and was in gospel choir and tried out for my first solo in this huge open empty chapel and closed my eyes because I was like, I'm just going to go to a different place right now because I'm scared, but I'm doing it. I could have not done that. I could have not gone to the microphone. I could have not gone to Spain, right? I could have, I think we have these moments where if we choose in that moment to take that step that feels kind of terrifying and then realize that we're okay, that like you did it, and it 9 times out of 10 is never as bad as whatever dramatic, awful scenario that you painted in your head. Like 90% of the time, maybe more, like is not, or even on LinkedIn, if I reach out to this person, what if they say no? Or what if they don't respond to me? I have to make mention of that because that literally ties in with like how I was able to turn this into a career. So it was November of 2019. I don't think I've really shared this too much. November of 2019. Like I knew that I wanted to create videos for our forensic accounting agency because it was a new thing. The algorithm seemed to be treating them well, but really deep down inside, it's because I wanted to make videos, right? Just they spoke to my creativity. So
I saw that Shay Rowbottom, who's very popular on LinkedIn. She's very good at making video content. I saw that she was really doing well on the platform, getting a ton of engagement. And I was like, man, I want to do what she's doing, right? So I quickly realized, like, okay, she's never going to answer my message on LinkedIn. She just way too many followers. I think she had, like, at the time, like 150,000 or what have you. Too many followers. She'll never see my message. It'll get missed. But then I went on her Instagram and I saw that on her Instagram, she had like 4,000 followers and I had like 12 or 13,000. I was like, yes. So I'll get her attention here, not really recognizing the fact that like all of my Instagram was just like modeling photos, and it really sent the wrong message to her, So basically, like, the message that I sent her is like, basically, can I like shadow you for a day? Can I bring you coffee? Can I clean your pool? Can I just like do whatever, just so that I can get some insights on, your process and how to make these videos? Because I didn't know she had a course. I didn't know what I was asking for. And she was like, this is super creepy. I don't know who you are. I don't know why you want to clean my pool or bring me coffee, but I do consulting, so I could give you a consultation. Luckily, she was willing to meet me in person, and from there we like built a beautiful friendship where I was able to learn how to do it, to the point where I left my job and now I do this full time. But if I didn't take that chance and I didn't go on Instagram and I wasn't a little creative with my approach, and I didn't stand up and say, you know what, I'm going after this, I'd be living a completely different life right now. So I owe a lot of it to what you're saying, is just like finding. It's like we have to like search sometimes for those cracks in the door. They're not always going to be, the light isn't always going to shine through. We got to kind of look for it a little bit, And yeah, if you can't get through the front door, like LinkedIn messaging, break a window, Instagram, And I feel like that's exactly what I did. So it's true. Yeah. Very true.
That's such a cool, I didn't know that's a great story. I'm like imagining her reading this being like, oh,
like, does a guy ever wear a shirt? It's like, this guy's really creepy. He can't do videos like this on Instagram, that's for sure. Yeah.
Well, I feel like what you're speaking to, Jonathan, is like, if we're talking about, circling back to the topic of resilience, so much resilience is the ability to adapt in the moment. It's this, it's not getting so connected to one way of doing something that if something requires you to shift, the word pivot is overused, I think, but
yeah. I love that you said that. Yes, like, so true, so true. Yes.
But if it requires us to shift, it's like the people that are resilient are the people, I mean, think about it like a tree, right? A tree that has a more flexible trunk can bend with the wind and it doesn't get snapped by the wind, right? So when you think about the types of trees, for instance, that grow in climates that are more prone to rainstorms and hurricanes and stuff, they're a different kind of tree than you see in the mountains of upstate New York because it's different weather patterns. So
right.
A lot of resilience is really having this. It's like the degree to which you can kind of come back to center after being thrown off.
I love that.